Hello, everybody, and sorry for my slightly less than ideal lighting today. I have the window open because Zelda enjoys being in the window, and I don't have the heart to close the blinds for my good background lighting and to keep her away from her sunny day. So we're going to get slightly darker backgrounds today, but that's okay because it's for the corgis, and that's perfect. Um, Amber, I adore you. You are so kind. So, hi, my name is Crystal Sophia, and I am an astrologer, a folk magic practitioner, and I like the way that Amber put it. I'm a scholar of theology. Unfortunately, I don't have anything official for that just yet, but I do work actively with university in Canada doing studies in theology, and I pursue it a lot. So, hey, Hunter, good to see you. It is great to see all of you. Jenny, hi. So, we have actually kind of a docile week in astrology this week. I'm really excited about it. I'm going to assume that my sound is coming through all right and that everybody can hear me fine. If not, let me know. It is still Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde until next week. Actually, it might be the week after. No, it's next week. Good. I'm doing some work ahead right now. Hi, Rocio. I'm doing some work ahead right now. So my head is kind of living in the astrology of 2 weeks from now because I'm preparing everything ahead of time so that I can have as much content ready and scheduled as possible so that while I'm out in Tahoe doing the Sacred Spaces getaway, you guys won't miss a beat. That is my ideal situation. I always try to make sure everything is ready for you guys so that while I'm gone, you don't even know it until you see pictures of things happening. Top of the morning, Kay. Hello, Russ. Hi, Chrissy. Hi, Kathy. Good to see you guys. I am so nostalgic for Egypt now. Several people in the chat have been to Egypt at the same time as me, whether they were on the same trips or not, which Kathy and Kay, you two would really get along. Hi, Nancy. Good to see you. So, if you have any general questions about astrology, folk magic, theology, mythology, feel free. And at the end of this broadcast, but about the last 10 minutes or so, as I promised last week, I do have a little bit of a rant for you about in astrology what is known as Black Moon Lilith. If you have heard about Black Moon Lilith, I'm going to explain to you what that is, what it's supposed to be used for, what it's been used for, and some of the mythology behind Lilith to help us understand how you can actually apply the Lilith archetype the appropriate way in your own birth chart to see if that's a prominent thing for you, if that theme is something that comes up for you in your life that you can work with. So there, yeah, I can't wait either. Honestly, the rants are fun because I get to get things off my chest, but also they encourage me when I know what I'm going to rant about. I get to do research for you guys and I get to share with you guys more context on stuff. And my favorite thing about context on stuff is that we don't have to be left guessing with things, especially when it comes to stuff like theology, mythology, things that really help us inform our belief systems. I love giving as much detail and context as possible, even if it doesn't get us onto a settled agreement of a specific answer. It gives us something to work with that makes us feel educated and grounded rather than floaty and sort of untethered with what we are led to believe rather than what we believe because we have experience with it and we've researched it ourselves. I love to contribute to your research and then give you sources to be able to continue it yourself to whatever path it takes you down. That's not for me to say, that's for you to discover, but I'm happy to be a little high five as you go. So that is my thing. Looks like we've got a question from Russ. Let me just catch up. Famous Persian Arabic female astrologers. Okay, so fun fact, I might have to dive away from my desk for a second to find it. I do think we have one of those. So believe it or not, the Persian and Arabic astrologers who are very prominent for their world, aka mundane astrology. So they basically said, the world has a life and we're just living in it. And so they tried to figure out the astrology for the world and what it was going through, and then how that affected us or how we embodied that. So that's kind of where mundane astrology came in. A lot of that research is being pioneered right now by Ali Alomi. If you want to look for more resources on that, I also do a lot with it. My Aries ingress chart is very much informed by Masha Allah and a little bit about Ptolemy because Ptolemy informs a lot of our eclipse timeline stuff. I really like Mashallah. Mashallah is one of the like primary source references for a lot of Persian astrology. And in that, I do believe we have a female astrologer slash philosopher. It's hard to come across those in history, not because they didn't exist, but because they had to be very prominent to get attention. Gee, doesn't that sound kind of familiar? But we have it in alchemy. There was actually an alchemist named Cleopatra, whether she took that on as a title or that actually was her name, or she actually was the Cleopatra. We really don't know. Another issue that we have in history is a lot of people gave themselves titles or pseudonyms, like pen names. And so we're not sure if, for instance, Maternus is a name or a title from the time. I think we have the same kind of situation with Valens and things like that. Dorotheus of Sidon, potentially. So let me just dive off screen for a second so that I can find a piece of paper that's going to have this name on it, because it's a tricky name. It's not like Masha Allah. I have memorized because I work with it all the time. This one is an asteroid that was named in the last year that Demetra George actually found in my chart over the last week when I had a consultation with her. One second, you guys. I'll be right back because I do know that I put it right over here because I thought I was going to need it, and lo and behold, now I do. And yep, here it is. Ta-da! Cool thing about Demetra George is that she does all of her consultations. She prints out the charts and everything that she works with and then writes on it. So what I have here, let's see, which one was this? Okay, I think I have to Google it to get the Aglonice, I think was one of them. It might have been Alamesis too. It's on my IC, which is really cool for me. But it's one of these guys, and I would have to watch the thing. So I would look up Aglonice, which does not sound Persian to me. So Alamesis may be our best bet for that. I will Google that as I talk about other things and see if I can come up with that. So Alamesis, I believe, is the one that we're looking for. There are other things named Alamesis, so we'll have to come up with that. It also may not have a lot of resources for me to find because, again, woman astrologer from the Persian era, not very well known, only recently has an asteroid named after her. Get it. But yeah, so I think that's the best I can offer for that. Like I said, I do know of others in the alchemy world and things, but unfortunately, the writing and reputation of many of the female astrologers did not survive very well. So it's a bummer, but that's what we're working with. Kathy is drinking your fourth cup of coffee while avoiding work. Glad I can help with that. Homemade ginger soda, Jackie? That's awesome. Hi, Christina. Good to see you. Looks like Jenny also has a question. I've been reading A History of Magic, and it says divination in Mesopotamia was astrology. Do you know when the earliest time astrology was discovered? Yes, I do, and you're very accurate. So, best we've got to work with is as early as writing exists. So here's the cool thing. Astrology has been around for as long as we've been recording stuff because we have cuneiform fragments. Cuneiform is the original form of writing. I'm also an English major. I actually do have a degree in that one. So cuneiform is the form of writing that happened in the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia, Babylon, that period, that era, that region of the world, typically between the Tigris and the Euphrates River, where civilization really started to build up and start recording itself. And so, if we have cuneiform fragments that mention astrology and the planets and their movements, we know that there was an established thought on this even before these fragments existed, because it was established enough, thought about enough to be written down. Now, unfortunately, they are fragments, so we do not have enough to put together an entire book. Our entire book, best we can get at anyway, actually comes much later in the Hellenistic or Greco-Roman period that refers back to Babylon. They refer back to Babylon a lot, specifically Babylon. And that book you can actually get now. It's got a translation that is in binding. We've got more translations than this. It's arguable about which translation is better. This is by John C. Riley, I believe. No, Mark T. Riley. This is by Mark T. Riley. The other one is by Project Hindsight, which is the Robs. We had Robert Hand and another Rob too. I think there were like three Robs. There was Robert Hand and Robert Schmidt are the ones that I'm thinking of. And so they did a translation as well, which is not in binding, and you have to like subscribe to a website that the family still owns. And some of us have PDFs of them. But this is the one that's available that you can get wherever books are sold. Mostly you're going to have to ask for it ordered in. It is the anthology by Vettius Valens, who wrote, I believe, in Alexandria, so that later era of Egypt. But he refers back to Nechepso and Pedosiris, or Pedosiris. I would say Pedosiris because Osiris is pronounced that way typically. At least that's how I've heard Egyptians pronounce it. I've also heard them pronounce it Osiris, so who knows? But Nechepso and Pedosiris are kind of like the Romulus and Remus of astrology, where they likely existed. Again, we have fragments of their writings. They are just fragments, though, so it's kind of rough. But they are the ones credited, along with Hermes Trismegistus and Abraham and archangels, for giving us astrology. So one thing that does tell us is that the origin of astrology predates recorded history, which is cool, right? So we know it goes back further than that, but it does go all the way back. So to answer your question in a very long way, yes, we can say that in Babylon, one of their forms of divination, one of them, I don't think it was the only one, but it was a primary one. One of their forms of divination was astrology. Divination is everywhere. It is even in the Bible, used by the Israelites. So just in case, and this is like a mini rant of mine, just in case you were wondering, yes, divination is a thing that was very common across the realm of ancient times. Astrology was included in that. So yes, it was there. Your book, at least in that aspect, from what I can tell, is accurate. So I'm really glad that you have that resource. Let me see. Yeah, so basically, if we want to say what is the earliest time astrology was discovered, it would be over a series of nights where somebody was staring at the sky a lot and was able to say, oh, look, those stars move and those don't. And that is where astrology would have been discovered. Because what we have, the idea of astrology, the modus behind astrology, and this is going to simplify it a lot for you and hopefully make astrology feel a lot less complicated when I explain this. What astrology is looking at the sky and saying, that's a lot of stars. And then realizing that more or less those stars stay in the same place, right? They are fixed stars, they are constellations, they're all hanging out there. And it takes them about 23,000 years to move a little bit. Right. So we have to move around the galaxy for them to have a different perspective. A case in point for this is the fixed stars of the Subaru constellation, which is also the Pleiades constellation. They are actually 6 stars now, but they are called the Seven Sisters because way back when they were observed, there were 7 of them. But because we have moved in our position in the galaxy, we're seeing them from a different angle now, and one of them has blocked out the other. And so now there's 6. So you will find many references in different mythos and different lores throughout the world of 7 sisters. There is one also in Native American lore. I think there's 7 sisters and there's a bear involved or something like that. But anyway, there are 7 sisters where eventually one of them is lost and it becomes 6. This is because the stars had 7 and then eventually one of them was lost and it became 6. And that's what we're working with in a lot of situations. So because they were like, hey, these stay pretty much constant, we're going to call them fixed stars. They are fixed in their location, except these 5 that are moving around a lot. And they seem to move around in the same path or the same little band of the sky that the sun and the moon also move around in. We're going to take that circle of the sky and we're going to slice it up into some equal pieces here so that we can track the movement of these wandering stars, aka planets, which translates loosely from Greek to wandering stars. And so when they follow the wandering stars, they needed a way to reference that. A lot like we do with like actual Earth with our longitude and latitude lines. We use those as a reference point. There are no actual lines on the Earth, right? But we use these made up lines to help us have reference for where these things on Earth are, whether it's a city, whether we're using it for navigation or whatever. They did the same thing, but up. And so they took that band of stars and they made a 360-degree circle. And those constellations, they put around 12 of them so that they could do 12 constellations of 30 degrees each to make 360 degrees. That's the reason for the tropical zodiac. We wanted it to be pretty and easy to refer to. The constellations that happen to be there do not fit perfectly within those 30 degrees segments of sky. That was never the point. And so that was also what the Babylonians were doing. They were looking at the sky and they were breaking it up in a way that they could measure stuff enough to understand it better. That's where astrology came from. So I hope that was, I hope I explained it well, basically. Let me know if I didn't, and if I can clarify, I absolutely will. Cool. Thank you, Jenny. That is a really good question. Sounds like you're really reading a really good book, too. I love a good book on magic that is rooted in good history, too. Cool, cool, cool. Let me scroll down a little bit. We're talking about ginger soda, and now I'm getting thirsty for something that's not water. What can happen if someone's moon and Venus are in your second house? If the moon, so you look at what the moon means, you look at what Venus means, and you look at what the second house means, and then you also have to look at the sign that is also in the second house, right? So there's a lot. It means different things for different people. Depending on what sign it is, that's going to change the whole tone of the conversation, right? If we think about planets and astrology, even like a sentence structure, the planets are the verbs. And so they are doing the action, or maybe they're even like adjectives in some cases where they are describing the action. And then the house itself is the subject of the sentence, right? And then the sign is, I guess you could say, the object, but it's like the tone or the theme of the story that's going on there. So if you have the moon and Venus in the second house, which is Taurus, boom, that is good stuff. The moon is exalted there. Venus is in domicile there. Taurus gets along with the themes of finances and resources of the second house. So this is really good for someone with a second house of Taurus that has the sun in the, or that has moon and Venus there. However, if it's the moon and Venus in Scorpio in the second house, this may not be as good. The moon is in fall there. Venus is in detriment. It's a whole different setup. So that's why it's hard for me to get into the real specifics of it. But if you want to do a consultation, you can go to my website. I have made the link easier for you guys to find. And if you would like a consultation, go there and you can schedule with me now. And it's going to be super easy to do that. Fair warning, I am going to be shifting my web host soon. So there's going to be a bit of a transitional period from moving from one platform to another. And that may skip a beat. But right now, it's still good. So check that out if you want to look at what your second house, moon and Venus mean. We can get into that because there's going to be even more context based on the rest of your chart for that whole thing. Case in point, if you did have the second house of Scorpio with those two planets there, I'd be interested also in what Mars is doing because Mars rules that second house. So that's going to give me more context. It's really, astrology is like one of those conspiracy theory memes where you just have to go all over the place and connect the dots. And that's what makes it so fun. So I hope that helps. But yes, so that's why you are very unique and it's hard to generalize astrology in a very open space. We do our best for the sake of social media and getting you as much heads up as possible, but a consultation gets it to the root of your chart too. Let me scroll back up a little bit to catch up here. Let's see. Cool. Russ, it sounds like you're doing some really good research, by the way, getting into Persian and Arabic female astrologers. I really like the implications of that. I hope that's going well for you. Let's see. Okay, whoops. Hang on, the chat refreshed and I lost my spot. There we go. What can happen? Okay, there we go. Melissa's talking about snuffle mat, which is great. My dogs used to eat off of a snuffle mat, but then they would get a little bit competitive with each other. So they have different bowls now, which is also fun. One of them also eats in the bathroom because she likes her privacy and dang it, she deserves it. Wasn't the only one. The author doesn't go deep into astrology because it's such a deep subject. It is such a deep subject, Jenny. Yeah. We have, like, I will show this whole thing, like all the way down. This is just astrology. All of this is just astrology. So there's a lot to discover, there's a lot to read, and it's a never-ending thing. And that's one of the things I really love about it. So that, I've been in it for 10 years, so I don't feel as overwhelmed now, but I remember that feeling. So I get it. If you want to learn astrology or anything like that, I help with all facets of astrology. Whether you want me to just do it for you, happy to. Or if you want to learn and you would like me to help you, I'm on board with that as well. Um, yeah, I wish I had time to stare at the sky that much too, Christina. I also wish we had enough of the sky to stare at, because as we got good with electricity, we now have so much light pollution that it's hard for us to track a lot of this stuff. It's easier to track the planets because they're brighter than a lot of the other stars, but dang, it could be so pretty. I think here in Virginia, we actually do have one of those. We have to have whole parks that just preserve the sky now. That's the world we live in, but at least that exists in the world. So I want to go there one of these days with my rinky dink telescope and go ahead and look at it. Because as an astrologer, we don't look at the sky enough. I will tell you that for sure. One of my favorite things to do, if you've ever been on a trip with me, is to do star spotting and show you how to actually relate that to the chart so that you can feel more in connection to it. It's very important to me. Um, Thank you. Cool. Oh, Christina, I'm glad that was a good explanation. Amazing. Good morning, Angela. Good morning, Natalie. Russ, I'm glad it was helpful. Good to see you all. I'm almost caught up here. It's called Magic: A History, From Alchemy to Witchcraft, From the Ice Age to the Present by Chris Gosden. I love a full citation of work. Thank you for that. I truly mean it. I'm not being facetious. The author is fairly grounded. Jenny, you are my people. That is exactly the kind of stuff that I look for. I'm going to have to look that up later and see how I like it too, because I'm always about it. I am trudging my way through a book on ancient Mesopotamian religion right now so that I can get as close to the source of religion as possible and get into a little bit more comparative theology of that way. But boy, talk about the author is so grounded, I'm falling asleep half the time. But it's good information, so it's worth the continued reading. It's just, it's taking me forever. It's taking me months, but it's worth it. I will get through this and I will share it with you guys as much as I can. Okay, cool. I found a new friend group during this current Venus retrograde. Will it last? I thought I heard it wasn't the best time for new relationships. Kay, this is a really good question to ask. And we're going to dive into it deeper because other people may be experiencing this as well. And it's very on topic for the Venus retrograde, which ends next week. If you found a new friend group and you feel seen by them and they are helping you understand who you are and you are changing into a better version of yourself by extension of spending time around this friend group who is helping you discern the kind of people you want to spend time with, you can see all that work that's going on along with this new friend group, right? So this new friend group, if it's bringing out the best in you, is good and it will likely last. The Venus retrograde for you was probably a situation of cutting ties or holding boundaries for yourself. And again, looking at where Venus is currently in Pisces, Aries and Pisces, looking at where they are in your chart, looking at different timing techniques to see how active Venus is for you. All of these things would give us more specific things for you. I'm going to keep this a little bit more general as it's a live broadcast. But if you want to know, are your new friends that you've made since roughly March 1st, when Venus went into retrograde, going to last? The answer is probably yes. The retrograde itself is typically when ancients would have said that Venus takes away what she gave. So Venus has been taking away this whole time. What she's been taking away is the question, right? So she is already walking backwards. If you're making new friends now, you are making new friends who are already in your transformative era. This is like if you are a hero and you're in your training montage where you go through that whole thing of like you're one way, you go through a lot of work to become something else, and then you are that actualized version of the something else. You can make friends in here. They may or may not go on the same path with you afterward because you're all in a transitional phase of your life. So if they didn't stick around, also don't think that that's immediately just your fault. Don't think that it's anybody's fault. You guys are both likely in a phase where relationships, your views of yourself, your ideas of your values, all of these things that go beyond just relationship that Venus governs are in a transitional phase. I'm going through it a lot. And it is affecting relationships in my life. One of the things that Venus retrograde has taught me is how solid some of the friendships I have are and how I can afford to trust them more deeply. It has also taught me how some areas of things, mostly beliefs that I had for myself, were not serving me and were limiting what I was doing. So I have not lost any friends during Venus retrograde, but I have lost things that I didn't need to carry forward with me in order to have a better example or understanding of relationships in my life. I hope that that kind of helps to kind of pull apart, are these relationships showing you what you deserve and helping you receive that, or are they challenging you? And if they're challenging you, the question is, are you happy or are you not happy? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel seen? Do you feel like people accept you for who you are? If the answer to those things are yes, likely these are your people, at least for now. And the other thing that we come to, and this is more of a Mercury retrograde thing, but it is also Mercury retrograde. I know someone who got a new job during Mercury retrograde. They are still in that job, but it never fails that during Mercury retrograde, the contract and the position and the responsibilities of that job are always reassessed. So this could be a situation of friendship that grows really well and is more organic and is something that may not be the most stable thing as far as predictable, but it may be the most consistent and reliable for the long run that gives you room to grow too. So those are some things to consider as you're thinking about this Venus retrograde. Also knowing that this is in the second half of the Venus retrograde, which we've been in for about the last week and a half or so. You've been doing great, right? It seems by observation for me that the second half of a retrograde cycle is the application part of the lesson. You're still learning some things, but you're having the more revelation of, oh, that's what that meant, rather than having I have no idea what I'm doing and I really just need someone to tell me what direction to go, blah, blah, blah kind of stuff. It's not as lost as it is finding in that second half. So I hope that that helps. Yes, it helped. Good. Yay. Love hearing that. Venus is your time lord this year. Yeah. If she's a time lord, especially at the 11th house, which rules friendships, it's about the social circles that you're in. And so that's really important to consider of like, is this conducive and the environment that I see my best self in? Is this where I can thrive the most? Am I planting myself where I can grow? If they're really close personal friends, that you might actually be able to look more at your third house situation for. Third house is where we find siblings, cousins, people who are like 1 degree of separation away from us. And often our friends who feel like family fall in there as well. Boundaries are the spice of life. I would say boundaries are the crust on the pizza or on the pie, just because it's a more solid boundary thing. But that's just because I love food, to be honest. Um, cool. Looks like Liz is here. Good morning. Great to see you guys. It's the picture with all the math symbols floating around. Honestly, I relate to that meme so hard sometimes, Russ, especially when it comes to astrology. Yeah. Validation is important. I'm really glad that some of this may be helping that. Hi, Angela. Ren, meant is more of a synastry question. Just found out a friend has a moon and Venus in Virgo, which would fall into your second house. Oh, well, if you're synastry, that's a whole different thing. Synastry is compatibility between two people and their charts. It depends on what you guys are doing together, because sometimes like that exists there, but the second house is very personal to, if it's your second house, that's personal to you. Virgo's a nice place. Venus is in fall in Virgo. The moon is fine in Virgo. And I've never really noticed Venus being in fall there being a bad thing. It's just Virgo has a sense of responsibility that Venus would rather just go off and like go on a shopping spree, whereas Virgo's like, hey, the budget. So there's those kinds of things to consider. But I think as far as synastry goes, the second house is not one of the primary places I would look at for that, especially if it's a friend. This person may just help you hold yourself accountable for not having excessive spending. Maybe that might be something to think about. Cool. Yes. Let me get back to where I was here. I hope that helps though. Took religion classes in college and man, those books can be dry. Yes, they can. Especially like a couple decades ago, people were very much of the idea that you had to be stuffy to come across as intellectual. I have noticed in some circles that that is finally falling away, that we can add personality and brains, and I'm here for it. Boy, am I here for it, because sometimes, like, if you want me to read your book, have a personality, be a human being in the book. That being said, sometimes they are trying to be as objective as possible, ergo extraordinarily stuffy, because it's not there for entertainment. It's there to be objective so that they don't have sway one way or another. And often we're entertained when our emotions are getting involved. So that's one thing that we can think about. But yeah, I'm with you. I would prefer an entertaining book if I can get one. Yeah. I lost several friends just before Venus retrograde because I was strengthening my boundaries, as you should. But then this new group came in and I feel so seen. Kay, yes, I'm happy for you. That is amazing. This is a very good sign. It's a very good sign. And again, for as long as you are happy, go with it. You have nothing to lose by following something that makes you happy, especially if you know that it's your genuine happiness. For as long as it makes you happy, go with it. Nothing in life is guaranteed to last the whole time. But that doesn't negate our right to be happy while it's there. And in fact, it motivates even more to say, hey, I have it right now. Let me enjoy it. I think that's one of the lessons of life that I have to relearn many, many times. We do love good boundaries. You're in a 10th house here. Okay. Solar return is in 2 weeks. Happy almost birthday. Moving into the 11th house perfection. Okay. You can see how we're kind of picking up on that. So you're either moving into a Gemini year or you're moving into a Mars year next with your 11th house. So Gemini, if Taurus is your 10th house, if Libra is your 10th house, then you're moving into a Mars/Scorpio year, depending on what is in your 11th house natally. So yeah, I would make sure those boundaries are very helpful regardless. If it's a Mars year, those boundaries are going to help you as you end up kind of pursuing things a lot. Gemini year, got it. So it's a Mercury year, which is great too, right? This is a very good networking year for you then. And knowing your boundaries as you go into that, it's going to serve you really well. I'm excited for you. Awesome. Okay, so is it possible to have multiple Venus retrogrades where someone in your life dies? I've noticed that I always know someone that dies this time of year. This time of year, okay. But I know it also just as I know it also just too far to jump to. So Venus does not retrograde every year. The first thing to say here is, if Jenny, you meant to say that this time of year is the time where you notice people passing, that means that that is something not associated with Venus's retrograde cycle, because Venus retrogrades every 18 months or so. So it takes more than a year, and it's usually a different time of year when she does it. So no, in this case, it's not possible to have multiple Venus retrogrades where someone in your life dies for whatever is actually happening for you. It does in a general sense. Venus retrograde every 8 years can repeat cycles, especially that she did before. So because it takes Venus 8 years to get back to a similar scenario between her and the sun and the signs that they are both in, that is when that same environment that you find yourself in now happened 8 years ago will happen again in 8 years. It's going to be a little bit different because you are older, wiser, have other planets doing other things and more to work with, or sometimes different things to work with. In this situation, if it's something that happens every year, then we would look at other things, and I would encourage an individual consultation for that, because I don't want to start airing that kind of stuff in front of other people. That's very personal, and you deserve your privacy with that. But I will help with it if you want to do a consultation. Yeah, cool. Meg is here. Hello. Good to see you. Good morning. All right. Well, we have covered a lot of ground so far. Thinking about the transits this week, we are in that time of wrapping up Venus and Mercury's retrograde. They both go direct next week. I'm very excited about that. I will be here next Monday for a live. The Monday after that, I will not be here because I will be wrapping up Sacred Spaces Getaway on the 15th, but then I'll be back the Monday after that. So I'm going to miss one Monday this month. but it's okay because everything else other than this live, I will have already scheduled. So you'll be able to have all of that stuff. And that week we are dealing with Mercury going into Aries, Mars going into Leo, which is great because Mars has been in Cancer for a very long time where Mars doesn't do so well. And that may have been like holding Mars back in a positive way in some ways, but it'll be nice as someone who is Mars ruled to get Mars out of the struggle bus and into a situation where he's a little bit more comfortable. Yeah, those are the two things that I would be keeping an eye on, and the fact that we're going to enter into Taurus season on the 19th. Taurus season is nice. Why? Because I'm a Taurus sun. So if the sun is in Taurus, I'm kind of happy because that means my birthday is coming up. But yeah, it's a docile kind of time right now. We have two planets that are going to be stationing direct next week. I will be here to talk about that with you. No worries on that front. But the chaotic, nonstop, like hit after hit astrology that March is/was is going to slow down for a little while. So yay, you did it. Good job. um, yeah, yeah. Cool. Thank you finally. Yeah, I know. Me too. Mars retrograde stumbled straight into my Venus retrograde story. And I will be honest with you, I did not like it. I prefer something else, but I'm glad that we're on the other side of it. It's good that it happened. I will reach acceptance sometime and, and I will integrate all of these lessons. Yay for the Mars. Yeah, Mars chilling out, man. We just need Mars to chill out. Actually, what we're looking forward to, Liz, is Mars speeding up. He is slow right now, and that's a drag, right? We don't we don't like it. Let Mars go off and do Mars things and move on. Keep seeing a lot of videos on glamour magic. Is a glamour just altering the perception of something? Are there different types of glamour magic? Okay, Ren, this is a very good question. I love this. So I see videos on glamour magic too. I think it's a Venus retrograde kind of trend that's going on of people being like, I want to appear different. I want to change my aesthetic, which get it, right? That's totally fine. Our more fantastical understanding of glamour magic is truly what the Fae are known to do, right? The Fae show up, or like let's even use the Wicked Queen from traditional Snow White, right? She uses glamour magic on herself. She's a normal looking person and then turns into what the movie describes as an old hag in order to do something. So that is a glamour. It's not who she actually is. It is an impression. Now, in our daily lives, Mars baby Marsing in its usual uncomfortable Marsy way. Yes, Gabe. Yes, thank you. Gabe is here, you guys. Yeah, so in our daily lives, glamour magic may not be quite so whimsical. You could, I mean, cosplayers do it all the time, right? With enough makeup and enough, talent and ability and skill, you can change the way you look. The true glamour magic, I think that they're getting at in these posts that you're looking at, that you're receiving on your timeline, is truly setting your mindset up to make you present energetically in a space the way that you would like to be noticed. And so what they're doing with the makeup or the clothing or whatever is saying dress the way that you want to feel in this scenario that you're about to put yourself in. So you can give yourself a certain style of makeup, give yourself a certain outfit, give yourself all of these things. They say like dress for the job you want kind of stuff, right? So if you want to go into a situation and you want people to respect you, you would dress in a way that you feel worthy of respect. You would dress in a way that you feel demands that attention. That is your glamour magic. It's not necessarily the outfit. The outfit is the magic for you. The attitude that you then step into, the belief that you then give yourself that you are worth this respect, which is true. That belief is the magic. You walk into a room, you carry that air. We've all seen it where someone comes into a room. Think about the Cinderella scene, right? Where she walks into the room and everybody stops and stares. You carry that air with you. You carry that energy when you deal with something. That energy, that belief system also informs what you're able to say, how you act, the boundaries you hold, the kindness that you might share in those situations. You give yourself the traits of a personality that you desire. And I hope that that is in line with who you actually are and what makes you very happy at the same time. But true glamour magic, the way that we can apply it most easily today is that. So it's dress and present yourself in a way that lets you feel like the way you want to be in that scenario. Forget everybody else. present the way that you want to be seen in a way that helps you feel capable of exuding that persona and that character, and then go out and be it. And that's truly it. Um, so I hope that that helps. Yeah, so it's altering people's perception by also altering your perception. It's giving you everything you need to believe in yourself for whatever it is you're trying to achieve, and if you believe it, so will they. So that's typically the idea of what we're seeing there. Um, is there a cleanse or ritual or spell one could do to help get rid of an illness? Currently have a cold. Rocio, there are many. There are many. Actually, when we were Liz, you'll get this. In Japan, I did not want to I felt like I would be appropriating if I did some of the traditional Japanese folk magic stuff for our people on that trip. Typically, if I go somewhere and the magical practice is open, I will use that magical practice to do a talisman or some kind of activity for people on our trip. On this one, it didn't feel right, but I still do magic for people. So I brought with me a spell for preventing basically dehydration. It was going to be really, really hot, and it was really, really hot. So we had a spell where you would take a glass of water and you set it next to your bed, and you would say the spell at night, and it would take away illnesses. It's probably working under the assumption that illnesses are a form of heat and that the water energetically is a soother and draws the heat out. Um, Baths are really good for that, depending on what kind of cold you have. If you're feeling cold, you wanna pacify that with warmth, right? If you're feeling, stuffy, mint is really good for that. This is this is another thing that Liz knows really well. Rocio, you were there too. Um, if you got any mint oil. And Rocio, I know you guys are siblings. So, Liz, if you want to share that spell that should still be in the chat from the Japan trip with Rocio, then Rocio can use that spell and hopefully it will draw out some of the illness. So glad you guys have access to that with each other. But yeah, also, Rocio, remember how I actually just did this yesterday. So, fun fact, I got to refer to my grimoires yesterday because Dan was picking out leaves from my herb garden and he brushed his arm along the stinging nettle. It does what it says, right? So he gets this big old rash. I go and immediately I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look for something that's gonna help more, but because this is hurting you really bad right now, I broke off a piece of my aloe plant, put that on, and it helped immediately, which was really good. And then we went and we looked up stinging nettle and different things from my herb books over here of what we could do to help with that. And we did. So it was really cool in a sense, like for me, especially because I didn't have to go through the pain of having brushed against stinging nettle. I wear really long sleeve gloves when I do that. But now we know and we respect the plant. Stinging nettle is really good, not straight grabbing with your hand, but some people will use the tea of stinging nettle and things like that. Research first before you ever do anything. In my student study on the Modern School of Ancient Wisdom Patreon, we were talking about perfect nature, which can be found in Picatrix. Gabe, I know you know what I'm talking about, and how in the sort of recipe for the perfect nature situation, they call for almond oil. And you got to be really careful with that because certain almond oils will kill you. Others won't. So you have to, it's one of those things where if you know, you know. And in the ancient times, they were like, if you know, great. If you don't, peace out. So yeah, singing nettles are great for getting stung. Yes, they are. So yeah, just knowing what it is that you're doing. And guys, don't be afraid to use like actual medicine because it is designed the same way. Like our natural remedies do exactly what they do, right? They're there to counterbalance this imbalance, this dis-ease that we are working with, just like modern pharmacy does too. Let's not forget that some forms of magic were originally called pharmakeia, and so there is enough research into those things to be able to use them as well. If you're uncomfortable with that, then we have the alternatives for sure. But just make sure that you consider all of your resources. Um, cool, Christina. I'm also glad you had a really good birthday. I'm grateful for that for you too. Um, yes, cool. Just catching up a little bit. Yeah, Rocio, I also feel like your cold may be in the chest area. So, the peppermint might help because if you want to breathe really deeply with the peppermint to like cleanse out and decongest, because I'm feeling a lot of congestion for you just intuitively there. Tea of ginger and lemon and honey will help a sore throat and postnasal drip. That's some good ones too. Oh yeah, we are getting ready for the Black Moon Lilith situation. And Gabe, you can contribute to this, but I am going to cite Demetra on this one too, and I'm very excited about that. Yeah. So thinking about all of those things, even like a ginger ale can help with those kinds of things, especially if you're also having an upset stomach from a lot of drippage and that kind of stuff. For me, my favorite thing to do is just make sure that I keep my sinuses clear because for me, that's kind of like the source of all the problems. I have a ridiculous nose. This nose is the nose that killed my great grandfather. It was a sinus infection. I like to joke about it. But it's an intense situation up there. So we do everything we can to take care of it. We are ranting. Yes. Grab your coffee. So if I have something to rant about each week, I'm happy to do it. And this one might get a little bit more into the ranty vibe, only because I'm seeing a lot of people misuse it. I'm seeing it get kind of misrepresented and it bugs me a little bit. So I will get into this. Yes, rant time. I'm glad you guys like the rants. Oh my goodness. Hang on. Battle of the Sinuses happened this morning here too. Okay. You're very correct on the chest congestion. I've been trying to get it all out. Yeah. Hang on. I'm trying to feel what will help with that. For some reason, I do feel like ginger ale is going to help you a little bit too. Also, I don't know why, but I'm hearing that you might want to eat some bread too. So that was the thing. My dad, every time I had a stomach issue when I was a kid, it was just eat some bread. And so maybe I believed enough that bread could heal all things that it's just one of my go-tos. But anyway, it is rant time. I'm going to rant today about Black Moon Lilith specifically. And so what I want to say about Black Moon Lilith is first, what you may have heard. She's got some popularity going on in a lot of social media astrology right now, and it is a real thing. Okay, so thank you, Jackie. That's perfect. So it is a real thing. There is a position on the chart called Black Moon Lilith, and I hesitate for that because I really don't know if I would consider it Black Moon Lilith, and I don't think that's originally what it was called either. The points on a chart that are represented by the black moon and the white moon, and Gabe, I'm looking at you to hold me accountable for my knowledge here and to help me along if I'm off topic or if I'm off base. But it is the perigee and apogee of the moon. Perigee, I believe, and this is where I will need some help because I get them backwards. Apogee is far away. So the apogee of the Earth happens for the northern hemisphere in the summer. We are farthest away from the sun. Perigee is closer. I hope I got that right. If not, switch them around. Anyway, the concept is the one that represents the moon furthest away from the Earth at her point in her circle around Earth or her orbit around Earth, where she is furthest away. Because if we are Earth, right, if this is Earth and this is the moon, it's not a perfect circle, right? It's an ellipse, just like everything else is. So over here, is further away than over here. This is where we get our supermoons, right? When there's a full moon, while the moon and the Earth are also closer to each other, supermoon, not a supermoon, further away, right? So, what we get in this situation, apogee for far, perigee for near. Thank you. I love when I get words right. Okay. So, what we're dealing with there is the black moon is the moon when she is furthest away. You can think about it like she's far away, the light doesn't reach her. However, you want to do that as a device, but it's just a point. Much like the nodes are just a point in the sky of reference, they're not an actually physical thing. Neither are the black and white moon points, right? It's just the closest point where the Earth and the moon would have been close, and the furthest point. Every chart can have them on there. Black moon is the one that you might find by default in some cases because it's gaining popularity. Just like Chiron randomly shows up on charts, even though it's not even the most prominent of the asteroids we would work with, and it's a comet. But I digress. I could get into Chiron some other day. So Black Moon Lilith is the point that represents where the moon would have been furthest away from the Earth based on the calculations that day. Just like your north and your south node represent where the moon, the earth, and the sun would have been at a perfect declination for an eclipse that day. It's there, the point is always there, and it is moving because so are the bodies in the sky. So, my gripe here is that it's been called Black Moon Lilith. Now, I'm going to cite Demetra George for my primary source as to the astrological black moon and its significance because she's done a lot of research on this. It also shows up in some other books, but this is the one where I had the most direct research in the past weeks because I was discussing with her on a consultation a couple weeks ago. She has found, and I do have Black Moon Lilith conjunct my ascendant, so it was important for me, of course. She has found that the Black Moon is often an indicator of kind of like bumpers on a bowling alley, right? It keeps you on track. Even if you really want to go to that other lane and see what it's like over there, you'll get the nope, you stay on track. And so it's all of these things that go wrong in order to prevent you from straying away from the path. And so this is something that, again, if I were looking at a chart, this is my personal opinion. If I were looking at a chart, I would look for the Black Moon point to be close to an angle, your ascendant, your midheaven especially, perhaps also the descendant. The IC is also important, but I like the ones that are above the hemisphere as like the ones we notice the most. Or if it's close to one of the other two Aphetas, the sun and the moon, or a time lord or a planet or anything like that. If it's really close to conjunct something else in your chart, I would pay attention to it because that means it's got like a translator via that planet or that angle to your personal life. So when we look at this, Demetra says that it's like the Sherry Salata, who's Oprah's producer. I met her once a couple of years ago, wrote this book called The Beautiful No. And for her, and I really should look up her chart because I bet you the Black Moon's in a good place for this. But for her, the Beautiful No was all the things that went wrong that made sure she ended up exactly where she needed to be to have this most fulfilling experience of her life that set her on track to live the life that she never knew that she could want. It was better than she actually anticipated for herself, and she never would have gotten there if everything would have gone the way she wanted it to originally. She needed to be bumped around. I also have experienced this in life. It's why I'm an astrologer now, and I'm actually not sorry anymore. So, with that understanding, what does that have to do with Lilith? Right? So I was talking to Demetra about this, and she actually said if she were to assign an archetype of a deity to the Black Moon, she would more likely go with the archetype of Kali. Kali, who is more of, I believe, the Hindu pantheon, is that sort of dark goddess kind of energy of no, hard no, because I said so, trust me, and just do what I say, and later you'll figure it out. And it's a little bit Saturnian in that way, right? There's this hard boundary. I'm not going to tell you why, because I said so. No. Lilith has a totally different story. And so I did do some research on Lilith. You're going to see me refer to the side here because I want to cite some of the things that I've read. Lilith, sound off in the chat, right? We know a little bit about Lilith. Lilith is considered in most typical cases to be potentially the first wife of Adam, mother of demons, all of those things, right? And got chased out of the Garden of Eden because she wouldn't obey. Fair enough, get that. But that's not the origin of Lilith. This is actually a story that became popular much later, like in the AD. This is a story that gained in popularity, and it was used as an example for a little bit more patriarchal things, right? Yeah. And it also a character in Has Been Hotel who can sing. Can't wait to hear more about that. But anyway, Lilith actually goes back further than Jewish mysticism, than the I want to make sure I get this right. It's the Talmud, I believe, rather than the Torah. Gabe, that's another thing that you can hold me accountable for as I look for it on my thing. But she goes back further than that. You can actually find references to Lilith, who is represented as a serpent in a tree in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Now we're going back to Babylonian and stuff here again, right? So way, way back before Talmud. Thank you, Gabe. I appreciate you so much. Also, super smart because you can tell me pretty much everything I want to know, and I really appreciate it. So Lilith is represented as the divine lady in the Mesopotamian myth, which goes back to, again, the Epic of Gilgamesh. A few centuries later, oh, actually, let me tell you how she was described because this is really cool. In the Epic of Gilgamesh and the story of Gilgamesh and the Hulupu tree around 2000 BC, we get Lilith as a shrieking vampiric demoness who destroys the Hulupu tree and flees to the desert after Gilgamesh slays the serpent dragon. And she is described a little bit in this way, to quote the epic story. And the dark maid Lilith built her home in the Hulupu trunk. Gilgamesh struck the serpent who could not be charmed. The Anzu bird flew with his young to the mountains, and Lilith smashed her home and fled to the wild, uninhabited places. So this is where we have what is potentially our oldest known reference to Lilith, way before the Jewish and Abrahamic doctrines that came a little bit later. A lot of that is borrowed, right? The Epic of Gilgamesh or the creation story of that same Sumerian Babylonian situation has a great flood. It has a bunch of other stuff that are borrowed. There are trickster deities there. There are trickster deity-esque themes in the Old Testament Bible. If you read um, the Oxford annotated New Living Translation of the Bible, they will get into the fact how Jacob, when he cheats Esau out of his inheritance, also uses a lot of tropes that are similar to other trickster deities. So we see that these stories do share some of those similarities, and much of, especially in Deuteronomy, when they talk about different treaties and things, are shared across many Near Eastern tribes at the time. So it's not all separate stories, right? They did borrow from each other. We have a lot of evidence to this effect. Lilith, of course, is one of those things. She gets borrowed in, and the patriarchy does what the patriarchy does and uses her as an example of Adam's first wife and casts her out, makes her a mother of demons. Yes, she is represented in a demonic way in the original myth that we have access to here, but she is noted as the queen of the night. And so she has this more dark feminine representation. Dark was different in a lot of contexts at the time. I really recommend reading another Demetra George book, Mysteries of the Dark Moon, because it gets into this kind of stuff archetypally and more culturally relevantly from the time. So black, like in the yin yang, right? Like the actual yin yang, black is representing the more feminine energy, not because it's bad, but because it's more receptive, because it's gentler, because it's like the night and it's softer, right? The white represents the more daytime kind of energy, the more ambitious, the more pointy, like the more go get 'em kind of directed kind of energy. Lilith would have been representing a nighttime thing. This is where a lot of feminine energy was said to kind of dwell and relate to. So Lilith herself does, we are not without Lilith in our chart. Lilith does have an asteroid. So this is what I would say. If you were looking for this Lilith myth, this Lilith archetype in your own life, you want to look for the Lilith asteroid rather than the dark moon. I don't think we get the same Lilithian, if you want to call it that way. I don't think we're going to get the same Lilith archetype interpretation from the dark moon because it's going to be a different situation. If you follow the way Demetra George says, and the way that I can kind of attest to it having played out in my life, and I am going to do some research on the Beautiful No Authors book as well, Sherry Salata, to see where her dark moon is. The dark moon is I know you think you know what you want, but you got to trust me. No, 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 no. Oh, look, you got to where you belong. Yay. That's the more black moon thing to look at. So if you're going to look at the black moon in your chart, look at that area of your life and say, how have I had a lot of what I've always dubbed in my life false starts? Some people might call them failures or falling off the wagon. And how can you then reframe them and say, no, this is just the universe's way of saying that's not the right path. Go this way instead. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this path. I'm sorry for the Zelda reference. I can't help myself. But anyway, if you're looking for Lilith, I wouldn't be looking at the black moon point. I would be looking at the Lilith asteroid. You can find the Lilith asteroid in your chart and then see how it relates to your chart. You can find the Lilith asteroid in your chart, see if that's really close to a personal planet, to an angle, to something that means something to you. If you relate to Lilith a lot, there is a high chance that there's some reason for that, and we can find validation for it. If you would like to go come to a consultation with me to pursue that, you can just make sure to let me know in the form that you get to fill out before our consultation. I will look it up for you. I will come prepared, and we will find out why you feel that, whether through intuitive interpretation or with backup from the astrological chart or other things that I can find. So that is my rant about the dark moon Lilith, and it brought us right up to time. And I appreciate you all. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that helps you understand a little bit of the difference, what you can actually look at to find what you're really looking for. Because I think the thing that bothers me the most is how this actually acts as a not so beautiful no, right? It leads you down a path that's not going to help you. I would rather be the dark moon here and say, get off that path, get down this one. It's what you actually were looking for in the first place. Have a good time. So, thank you. I hope that that was helpful. Yeah, let me know what you thought, and I'll do this again sometime. I do have other things I'm prepared to rant about. But if there's anything you would like to hear a rant about, let me know either in the comments of this video. I'll probably post this as a separate video so you can let me know in the rant video itself and say, hey, I've heard about this. Tell me more about the reality of it. If I don't already know, I will research it before I even bring it to you. So I will know something of it by then. And as you can tell, if I know of someone who might know more than me that happens to be in the chat or elsewhere, I will also go to them. Chiron. You know what, Liz? Adding it to the list because believe it or not, stinking Chiron is also prominent in my chart. So I will go there for you. That sounds great. I do have some things that I can say about Chiron. So tune in next time for that. Maybe we'll do Chiron next week. Let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful week. Remember to be gentle with yourself this week. It's a bit of a lull as far as exact transits go, but there's still stuff happening around you. It's still valid. We're still in 2 retrogrades. We are past the eclipses now. Congratulations. And I hope that your intentions feel aligned and that you feel really good. Yeah, I highly recommend doing further reading if this fascinates you. That is the way to go. Reading is the best thing. It gets you the most information. That being said, it's not the only way to get information, right? You can find YouTube videos from sources that are reputable or that you trust, or anything like that. Any way that you take in information in a good way, find the person who does it well. I'm glad that I can contribute even a little bit to that, and I will see you guys next week. Have a great, fantastic week.